Alright guys, today is 9-9. It's technically the last section in this chapter. I'm not sure if this is going to be a one-dayer or a two-dayer, to be honest. Sorry, technical issues. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to be a one-day or two-dayer. We're going to see how this goes. Now, it's important that I get some feedback on this, guys, because I really don't know if this needs to be a two-dayer. It's just up to you guys how well you guys do this. It does recall a lot of skills from Chapter 8 and even Chapter 7. So if you did well in those chapters, I think it'll be okay. So the learning goal, we're going to be able to combine functions. This is something that you're definitely going to do in every math class after this, I promise that. So it's important that we get this nailed down. So you guys are going to see the only ways we're going to combine functions as of right now, we're just going to add, subtract, and multiply as of right now, okay? Add, subtract, and multiply. So, with that being said, recall, we talked about f of x kind of. It's just fancy talk for y. We've said that. So when we were graphing lines, we kind of pretended that this would just be y equals 7x minus 2, if you guys recall. Now, today, there's going to be f of x's and g of x's, okay? Meaning, basically, f of x is basically just the first function, and g of x is just the second, okay? So it's just ways to talk about the different ones. So don't get too tied up in the notation and the way it's written. Just f of x basically means the first function, g of x means the second, okay? And so you'll see how we use this. That notation isn't entirely important. So I'm going to slide on. Now basically, this is notation, this right here, f plus g in parentheses of x is the same thing as adding the first function and the second function. Okay, so f plus g of x, if you look, f is the first, g is the second. So if you see this notation, it basically just means you add the first and the second equation, okay? You just add the two equations together. And so this is Chapter 8 skills, which we're going to go over here. Now, it's definitely important that we write things down. Remember, you can pause me at any time to get caught up writing things down. I just don't want to make the videos 30 minutes long for pauses for you guys. So pause when you need to. So we're asked to find f plus g of x, which is basically just adding functions. Now, this is lesson 8.1 from a long time ago. If we have our first function, plus 3x minus 7, that's our first one, and we want to add 1x minus 5. Well, this, when you add, all you do is combine like terms, right? So if I look at this x squared term, there's no other x squared term over here, so there's nothing to combine with x squared. So that person stays by itself. I know, it's sad. Now we have 3x, and look, there's a 1x over there. They're the same, they're like terms. Remember, like terms, you have to have the same variable and same exponent. In this case, they don't have, or they do have the same exponent. It's basically a 1. And when you add these, you only change the number, right? The x is still going to be the same, but you just add 3 plus 1, and it equals 4x, okay? And then last but not least, we just have our numbers. We have a minus 7 there, and a minus 5. So it's like negative 7 plus negative 5. Well, that's going to be a negative 12. So this right here equals f plus g of x. So again, this notation right here just means you add the functions together, which is what we just did. So it's actually not that bad. It's just the notation is a little different than what we're used to. I think you guys can agree with that. Okay? So again, when we're adding, you just combine like terms. You don't change the exponents when you're adding, right? You don't change the exponents. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide now. Oh, here we have f minus g of x. Now it is important to pay note of which one goes first. Here, again, they're saying the first minus the second, right? So we're going to be subtracting, we're going to do the first minus the second. All right, that's what we're going to do. And so we have the same two equations below. And I'm going to write out the first equation first. So I'm going to write out the first, x squared plus 3x minus 7. The only difference is this time, it's a big old minus. And then it's 1x minus 5. And so this is where we kind of have issues in chapter 8. When you have minus something, when you have minus a binomial like you do right here, you have to distribute the minus, okay? It's not just minus 1x minus 5. You have to distribute this negative to both items in that second equation. So if I rewrite what I have x squared plus 3x minus 7. And if you distribute the negative, it's a minus 1x, and a negative times negative is a positive 5. So now we just combine like terms. So you have x squared, there is no like terms, so x squared is going to stay out there. Well, now we have 3x and a negative 1x. Again, like terms because same variable, same exponent. 3 plus negative 1 is a 2x, right? Or you think 3 minus 1. You get 2x. Last but not least, you have a negative 7 and you have a positive 5. Negative 7 plus 5 gets you negative 2. So this would be your answer. That's what happens when you subtract the second one from the first equation. So f minus g of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 2. So we're just combining equations by adding them or subtracting them so far. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Not sure why I asked for questions. Just getting in the groove, I guess. Example. Here's another example. You have the first equation is f of x equals 7x squared plus 3x minus 1, and g of x is 3 plus 2x. And so first things first, they ask you to find f plus g of x, which just means you add the first and the second equation, right? This is the first plus the second. So we're going to do 7x squared plus 3x minus 1 plus 3 plus 2x. And now there's no negative there, so we don't need to distribute. Now again, feel free to pause me and try this on your own and then see if you come up with exactly what I got. Unfortunately, the 7x squared is by itself. There's no x squared on that right term. This isn't always the case. Okay, some of these problems, both of them have x squared, so don't just look at the pattern and not combine the x squareds if there is two, but in this case there's not. So then we have a 3x. We have to look for its buddy, which is right here. 3x plus 2x, you get 5x, and then a negative 1 and a positive 3, you get positive 2. So that is f plus g of x. That's just us adding those two equations together. Okay, so that's easy enough. Now we have to be careful on how we read the problem, because if you look here, this isn't f minus g of x, right? This is g, which is our second, minus the first. And we have to do exactly that. So we can't write the first one out first. Okay? So we have to look at our second equation, which is 3x plus 2 first. Or 3 plus 2x, sorry. And then it's g minus the first equation, which is 7x squared plus 3x minus 1. So notice we wrote it backwards because of the way they wrote this right here. It's not f minus g, it's g minus f. So we have to be careful and make sure we write them in the right order. So we have to write the second minus the first. So again, now this is like last example. You have a minus, so you have to distribute that negative to all items in that equation. So the 3 plus 2x stays the same. And now you got rid of that negative. But then look, you get a negative 7x squared. You get a negative times 3x, so minus 3x. And then you get a negative times a negative 1, which is a positive 1. Okay? And now we combine like terms. So first things first, I look, my x squareds, again, there's only 1, so there's not a whole lot we can do except write that term out. Now let's look at our x's. We have a positive 2x, and you have a negative 3x. So you have 2 minus 3x, which is minus 1x, right? And then you have a 3 plus 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is what you get when you do g minus f of x. Okay? And so this is very different. Very different than what you would get if you did f minus g, okay? So we have to pay attention to the order. So if it's g plus f, do g first. If it's g minus f, do g first. Especially if it's a minus. If it's plus, it won't change anything. But if it's a minus, it would change your answer. So if you did f minus g, your answer would be different and it'd be wrong, okay? So let's go on to do one more example, before we hit multiplication. Please do this one on your own first, so feel free to pause the video and try these, and then I'm going to do them for you guys, okay? All right, so find g plus f of x. So again, this is second plus first. Now, some of you might notice that if you did f plus g, it'd be okay. The only really time that it causes issues is if you do g minus f. So you have to make sure that if it's a minus sign, you write it in the right order. But g of x is the second equation, which is 5x minus 7, plus second equation, which is just 7x. Well, that's easy. The only like term is the x. 5x plus 7x is 12x minus 7. So that's g plus f of x. Okay? So that's easy enough. Let's do this next one. So g of x, we have to write out the first one first, or sorry, second and first. So the second function, you have 5x minus 7 minus f, which is 7x. This is, again, where you have to distribute the negative. So you get 5x minus 7 minus 7x. Well, I could include parentheses, and there should be a plus there. But if you have 5x minus 7x, combining like terms, 5x minus 7x, negative 2x, then this negative 7 is all by itself. So this would be your answer. This would be g minus f of x, okay? So you get negative 2x minus 7. It's not terrible, right? As long as we know how to add polynomials. So now we have multiplication. So this right here just means the first equation times the second. Okay, so we're just going to multiply the two equations. So this, if you recall, foiling, this is going to involve foiling, or in other words, distributing twice. Okay. Now remember, if it's more than two terms, if it's not a binomial times binomial, it's not necessarily foiling. We can't just do first outside, inside, last. But we're going to do examples to refreshen you guys on multiplying polynomials. So, first example, you have f of x equals x plus 7, and g of x equals 7x minus 1. And so we're asked to find f times g of x, okay? Which basically is the first times the second. So I'm going to write out my first one, x plus 7, and then I'm going to write out my second, which is 7x minus 1. Now this isn't addition, so we're not combining like terms. This is multiplication. So because they're both binomials, two terms into parentheses, we can FOIL. So we have x times 7x. Now remember, if you multiply a variable times variable, you add the exponents, right? And these exponents really, if there's nothing there, you can say it's a 1. So it'd be 7 times x, which equals 7x squared, right? So when we multiply, the first term is 7x squared. Then you have x times negative 1, which is minus 1x. Then you have 7 times 7x, which is 49x. And then you have 7 times negative 1, which is minus 7, right? And then the only thing you have to do is see if there's any terms you can combine, if there's any like terms, which there is. There's a negative 1x and a 49x. So if you combine those, you get 7x squared plus 48x minus 7, okay? And that is f times g of x. So if it's just times, you can multiply two equations, okay? So that's easy enough, right? As long as we know how to FOIL and distribute twice, we're good. So let's do another example. This time, sorry, f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x plus 1, and g of x equals x minus 2. And we have to find f times g of x and f minus g of x, okay? I'm going to probably have to slide this f minus g of x down just a little bit so I have a little more working room here. So let's look at this f times g of x. Again, this is just the first times the second, okay? So I'm just going to rewrite my first one down. So we have 2x squared minus 4x plus 1 times our second equation, which is x minus 2. Now, if you recall, we don't have two binomials, so we can't just FOIL. You have to distribute every element to every element. So this is the ones that you kind of griped and moaned about. So I have to distribute every individual item into the second binomial, okay? And so if I rewrite this out, you got 2x squared times x. So again, you remember you add the exponents. This is a 2, this is really a 1. So you get 2x to the third. Then you have 2x squared minus 2x. Now there's no variable there, so you just have to change the coefficient. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4x squared. All right, that's it for distributing the first term. Now we have to distribute the second term. So negative 4x times 4x gets you negative 4x squared. Remember, you add the exponents, and this is really a 1 here. Then you have negative 4x times negative 2, which is minus 8x. And last but not least, you have to distribute this 1. So 1 times x is just 1x. 1 times negative 2 is minus 2. So we have this long list. Now we have to combine like terms to simplify it. So if you look, there is no other 2x to the third, so I'm going to write out my 2x to the third, and then I'm going to cross you out because we already took care of you. Then we have our x squareds. We have two x squared terms, so let's combine them. Negative 4x squared minus 4x squared gets you minus 8x squared. Remember, when you add or subtract, you don't change the exponent. It's only when you multiply. So now we took care of those, so I'm going to cross those out. Oh look, now we have two x terms, a negative 8 and a plus 1, so it's negative 7x. That took care of them. And last but not least, you just have one number out there, so you get -2, okay? And so f times g of x equals what we just got. So that required distributing every element. Now that's review from chapter 8, so hopefully we haven't forgot. But that's what you need to do, okay? So if you still require more supports on multiplying, you can ask and we can figure out some extra videos or practice for you guys to do. And then last but not least, f minus g of x. So I'm going to rewrite my two equations again. So we got 2x squared minus 4x, and I forget the last number again. It's +1. So that's my first equation, and it's my first minus my second. And my second equation is what? X minus 2. And so we have to distribute the negative if we're subtracting, so it's distribute. So if I rewrite everything out, I have 2x squared minus 4x plus 1. Now we got rid of that minus, so it's a plus now. If you distribute -1 times x, negative times -2 is a +2. And now we just combine like terms. The x squared term has no buddies. So we took care of 2x squared. Now you have a -4x and a -x. Remember, this could really be a -1x. So -4x minus 1, -5x. And last but not least, you have a +1 and a +2. So that becomes a +3. So that would be f minus g of x. Okay? And so this is just combining functions. We either add, subtract, or multiply. So hopefully at least the adding and subtracting is easy enough. Maybe the multiplication requires a little more recalling of memories from past chapters. So we have to make sure we're sticking with everything. Just like we were using chapter 7 and 8 in this chapter, we'll use chapter 9 later on in math. So it's important that we get everything down, okay guys? And so for homework today, again, it's probably going to be a worksheet. I'll post that in Google Classroom for you guys. You guys know the drill. Do the problems, take a picture, upload it. Now I'm curious as to how difficult this section is for you guys. So you guys, I'm probably going to have a poll on my attendance sheet today, or on my attendance form, my Google form, and it'll ask if you think, if you would like a Zoom conference with me to go over some questions. Test, this is Friday. So I'm not sure when they're going to let us know if we have school next week or not. So we're going to plan on a test next week. I'm not certain how that's going to look yet because I'm making this on Tuesday, a few days ago. I'll definitely be letting you guys know. So it's important that you're checking Google Classroom multiple times a day. I would recommend 3 times a day at least, okay? Review, we're going to have a review assignment. I would like, hopefully, that we're here so we can review together. I'm not sure if that's possible. So review, I'm thinking I'll give you the typical review assignment, and then maybe during our time slot, I have a Zoom conference in which you guys can pop in and out of and ask questions on your review. Okay, again, I'm not sure how it's going to look. I'll definitely let you guys know, but just some things. We will have a test next week. It might be a lot different of a, it might be very different test than what we're used to, but that's okay. So thanks for bearing with me, guys. Hopefully see you Monday in school. But with that, I'll talk to you guys Monday.